Good morning, folks. Welcome. It is a glorious morning outside. I've just seen this cat, this local cat. It's orange and I call it Garfield, roaming back and forth on the hunt for small woodland creatures. Just yesterday, in fact, I saw it with a little songbird in its mouth. Now, you might think this is just a cat trying to get some food, but it's more than that. This cat is on a search for glory, to become the greatest hunter of all time. Now, you might wonder, what does this have to do with Spain and the Aztecs? Well, it has everything to do with Spain and the Aztecs because Spain, too, just like this cat, was on a search for glory. Not only that, but after bankrupting itself between the Reconquista and the Spanish Inquisition, that campaign of religious persecution, Spain was looking for some extra cash to spend. Where were they going to find it? I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with New World. Yes, that's right. It's the New World. So, get back in your seats. Get comfortable. Grab a nice cold drink and prepare yourselves for the social studies magic of gold and glory. Okay, welcome to Gold and Glory. That was a little bit from La Isla Bonita by Madonna. You can see this conquistador rocking the guitar there. That's right. Hopefully I don't get any YouTube strikes for the excerpts of music that appear here. So we can see the gold, the glory, and heaven. That's right. We talked about the Spanish worldview. We're going to continue building. And you might notice, yes, this is the Renaissance. So where we looked at Northern Europe and Italy in the Renaissance, but what's going on in Spain? Okay, we are building the Spanish worldview. We started with spreading the faith, that seal of the Spanish Inquisition, but that's not all that there was to the Spanish worldview after the Reconquista. We have our desire for gold. So you may remember Spain was bankrupt thanks to their war to capture Granada, which ended in success, and their expulsion of the Jews as part of the Spanish Inquisition. So where would they get this money? And who was left? Well, some of the people who were left were poor landless nobles. This might not make a lot of sense. How could a noble be poor? Well, they'd had these titles, but the land had since fallen out of their family's possession. But they still had the titles. So they still believed that they were above doing any kind of work for money. So whether that was starting their own business or farming, they said, nope, that's beneath us. They were known as hidalgos, these landless nobles. I mean, some hidalgos might have land, but that was just the title for the nobles. So Christopher Columbus, we're looking back to him, this Italian explorer who was working for the Spanish. He came back. 1492 was his voyage. He crossed the ocean blue, so to speak, as they say in that old rhyme. And he not only was a genocidal killer, he also was a liar. He exaggerated these stories of the gold that he found in the New World. He got little trinkets, gold trinkets from the natives there, but he said that there were basically like mountains of gold to be found. So the Hidalgos, even though they did not want to work, they were happy to go on a quest, on a noble adventure to try to find gold for themselves. If it meant fighting or sailing to new parts of the world, that was right up their alley. So the goal for many of them was to become rich, successful, and not only that, but celebrated as an individual. So this idea of individualism and glorifying themselves and becoming wealthy for themselves once again rears its head. So very stark contrast to the Aztec society where it's all about sacrificing for the greater good. So what did Christopher Columbus have to say about this?
They've got unicorns too. You kids ain't never seen a unicorn.
Okay, yeah, so Christopher Columbus and his tall tales definitely helped to bring people over. You might be wondering, did he really see unicorns? No, I haven't been able to find any accounts from Columbus about unicorns, although other people did. It was said that Marco Polo and the Roman scholar Pliny had documented unicorns. However, Columbus did have stories about mermaids. Okay, so we build onto our worldview. Individualism, key part of the Spanish worldview, becoming rich, becoming famous, glorifying the individual. is all about individualism. Okay, but it wasn't just about money, it was also about glory. So, chivalry is the big inspirational pillar of glory. We saw that this was back in the Middle Ages when we were talking about that, this knightly virtue about serving your lady and defeating your enemies in battle and being kind to the poor, worshiping God. In Spain, the single greatest figure of chivalry was El Cid, or El Cid, you sometimes hear it pronounced, and he was actually a mercenary warrior. He worked actually not only for the Christians during the Reconquista, but also for some Muslim lords. He had served them. But when the war really burst out and became big, he was most famous for his work with the Christian side. In fact, one of the most exciting legends of him, whether this is true or not, I'm not 100% sure because it was over 900 years ago, was that in this last final battle that he fought, he didn't really fight it. He had actually died, and his soldiers mounted his body on a horse so that he'd still ride into battle and terrify his enemies because he was that formidable fighter. So, with the inspiration of chivalry behind them, the Spanish conquistadors wanted fame and honor. They wanted to show that they could accomplish great things. So, you can look at this as humanism, this idea that humans are capable of wonderful, incredible feats. And we're going to see that, yeah, some of the things they did were quite remarkable and definitely took a lot of guts. So eventually, though, when we get beyond the scope of our course in terms of Spain and the Aztecs, the idea of chivalry would really fall out of fashion. So Don Quixote is often seen as the first modern novel, written by Miguel Cervantes. He started it when he was in prison. He was actually captured, I think it was by the French, for basically his merchant ship was captured. And then he finished the second part 10 years later. And it poked fun at these ideas of chivalry. Don Quixote was seen as a bumbling fool who had all these romantic ideas in his head and kind of proved a fool of himself at every turn. So definitely, I hope you've had the chance to check out that clip from a Spanish version of Don Quixote, a film version. One of the most famous scenes is where he attacks a windmill, a series of windmills that he believes to be giants. So quite entertaining and quite comic. Okay. So we now come to one of our main characters. Our entire next mini unit is basically very much narrative driven, looking at the story of the conquest of the New World. So we meet Hernan Cortez, a young Hidalgo, and he was bored with school. I'm sure none of you can relate to that, but he left for the New World in search of adventure at just the age of 19. So you can imagine he would have been 7 years old when Columbus set sail, and just a young, impressionable boy hearing all these stories of the New World, growing up with them. So he was tired of school, but he dreamed of being a hero. Okay, I don't want to violate too many copyrights here. Okay, but used for educational purposes, right? Okay, Spanish worldview pyramid. So humanism, individualism, and spreading of faith. You can basically sum up the important priorities of the Spanish conquistadors in these 3 bits. Okie dokie. And so that is it. I will see you next time around.